But thank you for reaching out to the show. It's great to meet you. I appreciate you taking a minute out today to talk about the
Yeah,
music.
thank you for having me on. It's very
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, you bet. So before we dive into your world of music, I want to begin with a question that I've been asking artists for a long time now, and it's
Mhm.
about living through COVID. It changed
Mhm.
so much, and it really did send tremors through the music world. How did you survive that time period, and how has it either influenced this album or the way that you create today?
Wow, it's like it almost feels like it was a lifetime ago that happened.
Yeah.
And it was such a life-changing experience, and yet it feels like no one even talks about it anymore. So it's very almost strange to even be asked that but it was a very stressful time. I remember it was, all of the unknowns and just, but for me, I, tried to stay productive and it was a chance to not be running around and actually be in one place and um, to learn new music. And I started my YouTube channel at that time, and I was learning my video editing skills, and so I kind of tried to be productive during that time, even though it was very, yeah, you just never knew when it would end.
Yeah.
It's very unsettling.
It was pretty surreal, and I think especially with New Yorkers, it was different level of dread because everybody was stacked on top of each other, and
Yeah.
other people in other apartments could only listen to a horn or the keys going all the time until they couldn't hear it any or it just everything started getting to a point where I'm sure the walls were closing in. I mean, in other areas you can move around in the country, but in New York there's a little bit more of a containment issue.
Yeah, I mean, it was just being in one place and not being able to go anywhere or have anywhere to go was it was very rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is everything rebounded well now? Is everything back and swinging and doing what it's done before?
Well, kind of, but you still see walk around when I walk around Manhattan, like I see a lot of places that have closed down
Yeah.
and still like empty storefronts and like whole blocks, in certain
Wow.
areas that it feels like, yeah, it really changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was surprised at how many clubs on both coasts closed down. Because in Kansas City, we have some big clubs, and I thought they were going to just go under, but they ended up making through. But I know
Yeah.
that a couple big clubs in New York closed down. Have
Hmm.
clubs opened up? Have there been any that have been opening up, or is it kind of status quo, staying where it's been?
It's kind of, yeah, stayed where it has been. Yeah, the places that have closed down, that was very sad. Like I think the Standard was one of
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was sad because I had gone there a few times, and it was always a great experience.
Yeah. One, there was a lot of moments that I remember because I really amped up my interviews during that time period.
Hmm.
And I remember talking to Spike Wilner, and
Hmm.
it was summertime, it was hot, and I could hear him with his kids, and I could just feel the intensity of him keeping that club open and keeping moving forward. And I just have a lot of respect for club owners like him that
Yeah.
during that time they got the PPP loans, they did things because it was really instrumental. And I think that's why people like him are visionary because they knew this was going to end and that everybody needed a place to go to.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine how stressful that would have been to keep a club running
Yeah.
during that time. So I think it's really amazing that he was able to do that and to keep growing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So let's
Hmm.
start in the present with Northbound to Finch and we'll work our way back. Talk to me
Yeah.
about this album. Talk to me about what your vision was and how good it feels to have this out in the world.
Yeah, it was it kind of feels like everything was a whirlwind over the last year, like putting it together because I did all of it on my own, and it was a big learning curve. I had to learn about all the different parts of producing a recording, and um so it was a very exciting, a new experience, but also a lot of steps that I never, even would have imagined that I would have had to do, and just to put it out online and to learn how all that works. But it was, it was really a dream come true to have an album and to have the trio that I did for this album with Paul Gill and Anthony Pinciotti. That was really amazing. Um, so it was all it's all my original compositions, and so that was in itself a big challenge. And um, yeah, and I'm just happy that it's out there now.
And it's your debut, so that's a big deal. This is your initial shout out into the
Yeah,
jazz world. Was any of that
yeah.
figuring into the way that you wanted to construct this initial album into the world?
Yeah, it was. I wanted to create something that was really my own original work. Um, and I've spent so many years studying well, I'm originally classically trained, so I would, studied classical music, and then I studied jazz, and I love all of that. But eventually I felt like I needed to create something of my own and try to start developing my own artistic vision. And um, so I'm striving to do that, and that was a goal of mine with this album.
But I think about being classically trained, and I remember reading the biography. We have a radio guy, a jazz historian here in town that wrote a book on Charlie Parker.
Mm,
And I remember after the cymbal was thrown, after he kind of hit that place where he felt like he wasn't good enough, he started gigging in the Ozarks, which is about 2 or 3 hours from here. And that was when he got in the big wreck and he got weaned on morphine. But during that period, when he was really getting his chops up in this just unknown place in the Ozarks, he
yeah.
started going back and reverting back to classical. He was listening to Mahler and Stravinsky and all these guys and kind of building. Do you find yourself undulating between the jazz and classic worlds to keep your chops up, to infuse a new vibe into the jazz you're making? How does that work for you?
Yeah. Yeah, so unfortunately these days I don't have too much time even really just to learn classical pieces, because when you're studying classical music, you really um at least like in my experience when I was in university, you get your pieces at the beginning of the year and then you spend months and months working on them. So it's I don't have that kind of unfortunately ability to do that now time wise. But that music I think is such a big part of me that some of the tracks on the album do have classical influences, like harmonically, just how I approach them. And it sort of blends jazz harmony with classical, maybe melodies, kind of. Yeah, it's I don't know if that I can really escape doing that, just because I feel like it's just such a big part of now. Even if I really try, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to disconnect from it.
Sure. So let's go
Yeah.
back to the beginnings. There's all
Hmm.
kinds of choices we can make early on between sports and music and all these other vocations.
Hmm.
Why was the piano the place that you went to, and why this career in jazz? How did all of this evolve?
So I was born in Russia, and at the time, you just, my parents just put me in piano lessons, and that was it. That was like, not because they ever wanted me, I think, to have a career in it, but just because it's something that you do. It just, um, and I really enjoyed it, and I stuck through it, through all of our when we moved, because I grew up in Canada, and so it was always a big part of my life. Um, and I didn't have, even in Canada when I was growing up in Toronto, like I didn't have all these other extracurricular activities. I just really loved music, and I focused on that. So I didn't do all the sports and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. I didn't get into that.
So what about influences? When you did cross over and get more into jazz, who were some albums and artists that you really kind of leaned on?
So I really loved always Bill Evans, um, and his album Explorations was something I listened to a lot. And You Must Believe in Spring. Keith Jarrett is another one of my favorites. Um, his album, The Melody at Night, with You, that was a bit. I used to listen to that all the time, and I just thought it was so beautiful. And that really, blends. Like he really had his own sound in it that really resonated with me. Chick Corea,
Yeah,
um, yeah, and Oscar Peterson is, and we used to have an album of Louis Armstrong that I listened to a lot, and also Diana Krall of all. Like we used to
yeah.
get these, yeah, we had a lot of CDs when I was living in Toronto at my parents, and so Diana was, I loved, because she sings and plays, and
Yeah.
um, I really liked her.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away that made you think, I want to be up there. I'm going to do that one day?
I'm not sure if there was one particular one because I didn't really like. I don't know if I really saw myself as like a jazz musician. I just really loved playing. So
Yeah.
when I was studying classical music, I really loved that. But the thing was that it's very limiting in terms of skills. Like you're very limited as a classical musician. So I um, got a job when I was studying at the University of Toronto. I got a job playing for ballet classes, and I realized I didn't even have the skills to really do that. Besides playing, they had some sheet music, but then they would ask me to improvise something, and I couldn't do it. I didn't have the skills, and I realized, the classical education didn't really prepare me for skills outside of just playing classical pieces. So that's how I got into improvising and learning other skills. But I always knew that I wanted to play. I just really love playing and connecting with people through music.
Yeah. So what was so you go from Russia to Canada to
Mhm.
America, and you're living this dream. You're living a dream that a lot of jazz musicians would love to be doing in New York. What has been the
Mhm.
difference between this dream that you had of becoming a professional musician and the fact that it's actually happening? What's the space in between those two?
So I I guess like when you visualize it, it's hard to maybe even visualize what you have an idea of what it's like to be a professional musician, but the reality of it is very I think you really have to love it to because the sacrifices and the cost of of it is so high that you really, unless you really love it and you really are willing to make those sacrifices, um it might be tough, like and I for me, like I love the challenge of it's not just the music, but it's also you have to be sort of an entrepreneur and learn all these other skills. Like even with this album, I realized you have to learn a lot of other skills besides just playing. So you have to be open to that. And maybe when you're studying music, when you just have the dream of it, you don't you only think maybe about the music part, the playing an instrument, where in fact you, the reality is you have to have a lot of other skills, or be open to learning other skills and being flexible um, with what you're willing to do.
Yeah. So what's the
Yeah.
best part of being a professional musician? What gets you up? What motivates you to create and to keep etching this career?
I really, we live in such a crazy time, and there's so much, like, I don't know, negativity out there that
Hmm.
I think with music, for me, it's sacred and it's very special, and that you get to connect with other people, whether it's when I play, or when I also work as a ballet accompanist. So when I play for other people, whether it's dancers or if I'm doing a gig, and I um, get to play with other musicians and meet people at those gigs, audience members, I love that it's a moment to have a positive, to have something positive through
Yes.
music, like having a conversation about, like, if someone tells me about a memory that a particular song made them think of, or they tell me stories about them playing an instrument, or like it's just a very beautiful thing. I think that music allows us to have,
And I
to create and then meet other people that way.
And I think it's more important than ever, like you said, we've totally rounded a corner in this country of things just, I mean, just at a minimum, immigration is under fire, along with everything else that's a part of what this country was built on. And I think people feel that increasingly with everything that's going on. So it almost seems like music is an escape. It's a bastion for
Mm.
people. Is that kind of in the forefront of your thought when you're going and doing a live show?
Yeah, I think that, it's our as musicians, it's sort of I feel like it's my responsibility to, even despite whatever's going on in my own life or around, to bring, to bring a moment of joy to people and a moment of peace and bringing coming together. And I don't know if that sounds cliche, but I really think that it's true. And through my experiences of being a professional musician, I have seen that happen. And I feel very fortunate that I'm able to do that and um, to make someone um, to make someone feel good through a song, especially like when I play. I have a weekly residency, and for the last few years, I've had some weekly residencies around town and in various restaurants, and sort of the bread and butter of life as a professional musician.
Yeah.
And you notice, like, when, especially if you play a song that people know, like they'll look up and they'll smile, and it's a moment um, to snap them out of their,
Uh-huh.
maybe if they're on their phone or if they're in their whatever. It's a moment to be here in the present in the real world.
Yeah,
Um,
for
yeah.
sure. So why do you love this art form we call jazz?
I love the that it allows you to be very creative, like, especially if I compare it to being to playing classical music. There's just a lot more yeah, creativity, like even with the tunes on my album. When I wrote them, i I play them differently. I get to play them differently every time I play it, depending on who I'm playing with or where I'm playing it. And I find that very exciting. And jazz to me is like an analogy. It's sort of, it is like life, because you never know what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. It takes you to different places. And I talk about that a lot with one of my dear friends and musical mentors, Harvey Diamond. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Uh-huh.
He's a pianist,
Yeah.
and he's based in Boston. And I was very lucky to meet him right when I moved to New York. And we've had a lot of conversations about this. It's how there's so much freedom in jazz, and how you don't know how long you want to play that chord however long you want. Like, it's just there's you just you can really take it to different places.
Yeah.
So I love that.
So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one jazz show,
Hmm.
where are you going?
Maybe Bill Evans at the Vanguard.
Yeah. With Scott LaFaro?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I had a feeling it would be Bill Evans. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you.
Hmm.
Family, friends, fans, everybody on the bandstand, everybody that knows you, but you run the
Hmm.
show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
It's a um hard question. I guess I try to be um very open towards everyone that I just love meeting people, and I'm honestly genuinely curious about people's especially with music, like, you know what I like to find out what music people like, and what um about what they do. And you know yeah, I try to be open to everyone that I meet. And yeah,
Right
that's
on.
kind of a hard
It
question.
is. It is a hard question, and it seems like
Yeah.
it should have a PhD dissertation, but sometimes the brevity works. So,
Mm.
what's the official day the album comes out?
So the album actually has been, it came out in October. It came out
Okay.
October 17th.
Okay.
And another thing I wanted to mention is in addition to the jazz album, I also made a companion album for ballet dancers because
Okay.
I work a lot with ballet dancers and have for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
So I adapted the composition from the jazz album to ballet exercises.
Cool. Right
Yeah.
on. So, did you have a big celebration for the opening of this on the 17th? Did you have what do you do when you get that box of CDs in the mail?
Yeah, so that was really surreal. I got the box actually. It arrived in August, and that was
Okay.
a really cool feeling.
Yeah.
Like even though, nowadays CDs are kind of antiquated
Yeah.
and but still there is something very meaningful because it is something that you work on, for so long, and then music, like to have a physical object is really special.
Yeah. Well, and the one
Yeah.
thing about right now in this process is that you've recorded it, you've produced it, you've done everything on the back end. Now it's promoting, it's been out. So it's almost like you've moved on to the next thing.
Uh, well, I I still do feel like I'm in the promotional
Okay.
stage of this, and I have some things planned that I'd still like to do with it, and to get the music out there, and but for sure, like I would love to have an opportunity to do another project.
Yeah.
It was very special. It was a very special experience.
So speaking of things to do with this album, live shows, what's coming up for promotion? If anybody wants to catch you live, you talked about residencies. Where can they
Hmm.
catch you?
So I have a calendar up on my website where I play. I play twice a week at a French restaurant here in New York at on the Upper East Side. It's a duo that I do with sometimes a bass player, sometimes a guitar player, and we do a mix of jazz and some. I like to do, I like to take some even pop music but it sort of combine it with improvisation and jazz. And again, because I feel like it's important for me to make a connection with the people that I'm playing for in the context in which I'm playing. And so I try to incorporate that in, because otherwise I found, at least in my experience, that especially in situations like that where music kind of becomes a background, but as soon as you play a song that or a melody, whether it's jazz or a pop song that people recognize, they they start paying attention, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're not background music
Yeah.
anymore. So anyway, so we do a mix of jazz and pop and some French classics.
Right on. Where's the best place for people to pick up a copy of the album? Is it Bandcamp or do they go to your website? Where should they go?
So right now it's really just digital copies.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Good deal. So, and then I will put up links to your website so people can see the shows that you're playing and links to the album digitally. So, again, thank you so much for taking a minute out today to talk about the album. Best of luck with it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on and for
Yeah,
this interesting conversation.
yeah, absolutely.